Officers screamed orders while soldiers marched in rigid steps for Hitler, just as they once had for the Kaiser. Berlin was coming apart at the seams, and amid the chaos, one bewildered major stood on the brink of shaping Germany's fate. Panic surged through the capital as rumors multiplied, and an unexpected command landed in the hands of a man who never imagined he would receive it. That afternoon, Berlin wasn't merely anxious, it felt as if the entire city was gasping for air. Soldiers ran through the streets as though they were being chased. Civilians stood frozen on sidewalks, whispering wild theories. Hitler was dead, the SS had seized power, the government had collapsed. No one knew what was true, and that uncertainty was terrifying. Berlin felt like a radio stuck between frequencies, nothing but static, no clarity at all. At the center of the storm stood a 31-year-old officer meant for combat, not politics. Major Otto Ernst Remer was tall, confident, and decisive, a man used to acting under fire. Yet even he sensed that something was deeply wrong. Couriers rushed past him, teleprinters clattered non-stop, and the air itself seemed thick with smoke and fear. Then the order reached him. Official. Properly signed. Beyond dispute. He was to arrest Joseph Goebbels immediately. Put yourself in Remer's position. Who could you believe? The city was unraveling, the government appeared leaderless, and now he was being instructed to detain the man who controlled the regime's voice. This was no routine task, it was a spark to a powder keg, and Remer was holding the flame. Inside Hitler's headquarters, confusion followed the assassination attempt. Speculation swirled over whether the Führer had survived the blast or later died from his injuries. Official photographs were released to calm the public, but instead the silence only fed the rumors. According to Goebbels, everyone at the meeting, except Hitler and General Keitel, had been hurled through windows by the explosion. Soon after, a black-cloaked Hitler appeared in public, greeting a visibly shaken Mussolini. With his injuries concealed beneath heavy clothing, he extended his left hand, projecting survival and control. The events leading to that moment still feel surreal. Deep in the forests of East Prussia, inside the Wolf's Lair, Colonel Claus von Stauffenberg entered a briefing carrying an ordinary leather briefcase. He aroused no suspicion. He looked like any other officer attending another routine meeting. But inside that case was a bomb designed to cripple the Nazi leadership in a single blow. Stauffenberg placed the briefcase beneath a heavy oak table just feet from Hitler, excused himself, and left the room. Time crawled. Then the explosion ripped through the hut. Walls shattered, doors flew off their hinges, glass exploded outward, and bodies were thrown through the air. Smoke swallowed everything. From that cloud emerged a staggering figure, Hitler, wounded and dazed, his uniform torn, his hearing damaged, but alive. Stauffenberg, already fleeing, believed no one could have survived the blast. From the air, as he headed back toward Berlin, he radioed the message that changed everything. Hitler was dead. Operation Valkyrie was underway. That single false assumption triggered one of the most chaotic sequences in history. Operation Valkyrie had not been created to overthrow Hitler. It was a contingency plan designed to preserve order if the SS attempted a coup, a bureaucratic safety mechanism. But the conspirators had secretly rewritten it, transforming it into a weapon. Their masterstroke was blaming the SS for assassinating Hitler. That claim alone was enough to mobilize the reserve army, which already distrusted and despised the SS. When teleprinters in Berlin reported Hitler's death, the coup accelerated instantly. Reserve units were ordered to secure government buildings, not to topple the regime, but to restore order. The deception was brilliant. Everything hinged on speed. If word leaked that Hitler had survived, the plan would collapse. Orders were rushed through the city faster than facts could catch up. For a brief, terrifying window, the conspiracy actually succeeded. What's most astonishing is that Germany's fate didn't rest with top generals or politicians. It came down to a single battalion, a single unit, a single man. Otto Ernst Remer commanded the Guard Battalion Großdeutschland, the most elite force in Berlin. These were not desk soldiers. They were hardened veterans, physically imposing, battle-tested survivors pulled straight from the front lines. Every man had endured real combat. Berliners saw them as the city's private army, because whoever controlled that battalion controlled Berlin, and whoever controlled Berlin controlled Germany. That is why the conspirators focused on Remer. He wasn't SS. He wasn't a fanatic. He was a professional army officer, someone they believed would obey official orders without hesitation. To them, he was the ideal instrument, powerful enough to confront the SS and disciplined enough to follow the chain of command. What no one fully understood at the time was this: Remer wasn't merely powerful, he was resolute. Once he accepted an idea as truth, he embraced it completely, without hesitation or doubt. That made him extraordinarily dangerous, both to deceive and to underestimate. The tension reaches its breaking point when Remer arrives at the Ministry of Propaganda, armored vehicles rumbling behind him. His troops surge through the corridors, boots hammering against the floors, doors bursting open as shouted orders echo through the building. Fear seems to pulse through the walls themselves. Inside the office stands Joseph Goebbels, motionless and composed, as if he had been expecting this confrontation. Remer raises his pistol and declares that the Führer is dead and that he has orders to place Goebbels under arrest. His voice is firm, but uncertainty flickers in his eyes. Goebbels responds calmly. He pulls a small glass capsule from his pocket, a cyanide pill, holding it just long enough for it to catch the light. Coldly, he warns that if he is arrested, he will swallow it. He asks Remer if he truly wants to explain the death of Germany's propaganda minister to the nation. The trap closes instantly. Remer freezes. One wrong move would make him responsible for Goebbels' death. Goebbels presses his advantage, asking if Remer recognizes his voice and ordering that the traitors be taken alive. Everything begins to turn. Sensing hesitation, Goebbels confidently reaches for the telephone and dials the Wolf's Lair, as casually as if calling an old acquaintance. He hands the receiver to Remer and tells him to speak directly. Remer lifts the phone expecting nothing, perhaps silence, perhaps a clerk. Instead, he hears breathing, static, and then a voice he recognizes immediately. Hitler. Instinctively, Remer straightens and addresses him. Hitler, furious and shaken from the explosion, confirms the assassination attempt and rants about betrayal in Berlin. He demands immediate action. In that moment, Hitler promotes Remer from major to colonel over the telephone and places him under personal command until the SS arrives, ordering him to restore order by any means necessary. All doubt vanishes. Remer salutes the phone itself. Moments earlier, he had been prepared to arrest Goebbels. Now, he is ready to fight and kill for him. Outside, the situation collapses for the conspirators. Remer gathers his battalion and announces that Hitler is alive and that they have been deceived. Tanks pivot through the streets, and the Guard Battalion, Berlin's most powerful unit, switches allegiance instantly. Safe houses fall, communications shut down, and officers who once gave orders are arrested. The coup leaders realize too late that they made a fatal assumption. They believed Hitler was dead without proof. By midnight, Stauffenberg and his fellow plotters are captured. Before dawn, they are executed in the courtyard of the Bendler block. Operation Valkyrie, one of the most daring coup attempts in European history, collapses in less than 24 hours, all because one man heard a familiar voice on the telephone. Stopping the coup transforms Remer overnight. He becomes a celebrated figure, praised across the Reich. Propaganda glorifies his loyalty, newspapers hail him as a hero, and on January 30, 1945, he is promoted again, becoming one of the youngest generals in the German army. But acclaim cannot stop reality. Germany is losing the war. Remer's division is sent to the Eastern Front, where it is destroyed. He survives only by disguising himself as a civilian and eventually surrendering to American forces, a spectacular rise followed by a devastating fall within a single year. After the war, Remer is detained by the British until 1947. Upon release, he does not fade into private life. Instead, he plunges into extremist politics, joining far-right groups that eventually expel him for being too radical. In 1950, he forms the Socialist Reich Party, an openly neo-Nazi organization that denies the Holocaust and glorifies the Third Reich. The party grows rapidly and is banned by 1952. Charged with attempting to rebuild a Nazi-style organization, Remer is sentenced to prison but flees the country instead. That escape leads him to the Middle East, where he resurfaces as a military advisor to Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser, helping train forces for a potential war with Israel. Even far from Europe, Remer never abandons his ideology. Decades later, he returns to West Germany and resumes extremist activism, founding another neo-Nazi group and publishing propaganda filled with Holocaust denial. In 1992, German courts sentence him again, but he flees to Spain, where extradition is denied. He lives out his final years unrepentant, dying in 1997. History, as it turns out, does not always offer clean endings. Sometimes it simply fades into shadow, carried by those who refuse to let the past die.